Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Well, there is a lot that I'd like to go through. A lot of news and note stuff. Plenty more on the, as you know, I got through 5% of what I wanted to talk about yesterday. So I thought we could talk more about, coaching candidates. And there's also now talk. The other side of the coaching candidacy thing is, as we talk about getting rid of Matt LaFleur, everybody else around the NFL is like, holy crap, would I love to have Matt LaFleur. So, because again, he's shockingly good reputation across the NFL, and I, again, think that's for good reason. It's one of those things, too, where it's like, you have to understand, this is sort of that cause and effect thing. You can look at Matt LaFleur and let's say you agree with me that, okay, fine, his play calling is good, but the game management, the ability to get his guys ready and all that stuff is bad. This is similar to what happened with the Bears when they had their defensive coordinator head coach, and they're like, this guy sucks, we need to get rid of him, and they got rid of him, and suddenly their defense fell apart, and they're like, oh, right, I forgot. He's good at that, right? You have to understand that it's not like everything else just stays the same, but we improve that. The offense goes straight backward. And so if you find like a guy that can do the stuff that Matt LaFleur is not doing well enough, you also have to find a guy that can do the offensive stuff as well as Matt LaFleur, and there are not that many that can do it. It's not impossible, right? I think the Bears are doing okay, having moved on. They seem to have figured out the defensive stuff at least well enough, considering their personnel is not fantastic, and then also fix the other thing. But it's not a guarantee. We've also seen the Bears get that wrong 500,000 times, as well as every other team. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Again, we're going to move on and talk about the Giants today, but as we talk about that, remember, it's not everything stays the same except the stuff I don't like. That just gets better. It's everything gets worse, and we have to replace all that. We find somebody that's better at the stuff that I don't like, but you also have to replace the stuff that you do like. And if you can't, you have to adjust for it in your mind as this is going to get worse. And allowing the offensive play calling to get worse is not always the smartest plan in the world. I understand it might be necessary. I'm not saying that you have to be held hostage because of it. Bro, Walgreens, I will refill the prescription when I feel like it, dude. I have a bunch because just leave me alone. Hey, it should be about that time, huh? No, I got plenty. We're good. I don't know. I feel like you should do that. Let me send you an email and then call you and then text you and then email you again and then call you 7 times. Just let me die, all right? Leave me alone. Jeez. Very concerned about my well-being. All right, what else here? Garrett Wilson, IR. Kalen Saunders was released, defensive tackle. Some people think we should pick him up. Halfley to the Giants. Jair stepped away. Asante Samuel signed with the Steelers. And a bunch of other stuff that we're not going to delve into because we can't. We don't have time. All right, so I'm starting a day later than I probably should have, so I don't know exactly the best way to do this. I think I'm going to stick to the general schedule of just going through the roster first and foremost. And then tomorrow we'll do sort of a scheme / let's take a look at the games thing with maybe a little bit less of an emphasis on the betting and whatnot. We'll see. But okie dokie, let's get into it. Again, today is going to be learning about the Giants roster. Who are the players we're going to be going up against? We'll start off with quarterback, which is usually very straightforward. It's not so much when you're talking about the Giants. It's been kind of a mess. They're actually similar to the Vikings in that they had a guy, I say similar, not exactly. I mean, the Vikings saw Darnold play at a high level. The Giants, I had always said Daniel Jones was a decent quarterback just based on PFF grades. But obviously the Giants were terrible and he wasn't really getting it done there. But I mean, he graded in like the 70s and stuff. That may have dipped toward the end. I don't know. But the point is, Daniel Jones absolutely had no future for the Giants. They hated him. things were not working, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, and you might remember some of this, Daniel Jones tore his ACL in 2023. He came back in 2024, and that's when things really started to look bad, to the point where he got benched week 10 of last year. That's when you saw Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, et cetera, both of which sucked. So 2025, they come in with a new plan. And again, similar to the Vikings. It's kind of a year delayed, but the plan is let's get an old vet and let's go get a young guy. The young guy will sit behind the old vet. The vet will come in and play. The young guy will just sit and learn. Well, the vet was Russell Wilson. Now, Russell Wilson had not been super fantastic, obviously, over the last few years, but I don't think you're really planning on a Super Bowl here. So you bring him in, you hope that Brian Daboll, who you still think is an offensive genius and all that stuff, will be able to maybe get something good out of Russell Wilson. We'll see how it goes. You always have some kind of hope. But Jackson Dart is the exciting guy. That was their first-round pick 25. Like, this is hopefully our guy of the future. That plan lasted exactly 3 weeks. Russell Wilson started off 0-3, looked absolutely atrocious. And Brian Daboll is like, all right, I guess we're accelerating this plan. Jackson Dart's coming in. Jackson Dart comes in, and pretty exciting, actually. High energy. He made the Giants kind of fun, especially with Cam Scatterbo. Fearless. Dude's got some legs. 7 rushing touchdowns. The issue is the rushing has caused some problems. He currently is not playing in this game because of a concussion. He's in concussion protocol. However, that's not even the half of it. This is the 4th time this year he's been evaluated for a concussion. Now, this is the first time he's actually been put in concussion protocol, but that is a very scary thing. When you look around the league, you see all these other guys that have injury issues and whatnot, especially head injuries. Even if the first 3 this year didn't materialize, the fact that he's taken so many hits to the head that he's had to be pulled aside and checked for a concussion, and now, for the first time, officially diagnosed with a concussion and is missing games as a result, that's scary. That's a problem. And they're going to have to work on that as far as him protecting himself a little bit more, whether that just means less rushing or learning how to do different things. Don't lead with your head. I don't know exactly what he's doing over there, but dude is taking headshots. Eventually, everything kind of came to a head. The Giants continued to lose, despite some of the fun, flashy stuff that's going on, and we'll get to some of the other personnel losses when we go to the other positions and whatnot. But ultimately, Jackson Dart, 63% completion rate, 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 6.9 yards per attempt. He did have a 72 overall grade, but 80 grade was for his rushing ability. 67.2 was his passing grade, which is just above Russell Wilson. So at least from PFF's standpoint, it's a little more than elite. I think he's just kind of a little bit exciting. Also worth noting, though, if you look at the grades specifically, he started off terribly, and it just got better and better. Philly was his first really good game, dropped back down week 7 against Denver, and then it was off to the races. It was basically 80, 70, 70. So if you look from week 6 on, or especially week 8 on, you're going to see some significant improvement. But the way things go in the NFL is just when you start to get good, that's when you go out. That's the way it goes for the Packers, at least, and that seems to be the situation for the Giants. So Brian Daboll ends up getting fired on Monday. Jackson Dart is officially out in concussion protocol, and I had talked about it on the podcast. I was kind of embarrassed by it because I was like, well, it's, I guess it's Russell Wilson. Apparently, that's not how that worked. And I guess I should have seen it kind of, or at least question. I didn't have a reason, really. I guess I'm not a Giants insider, so it's not like I'm super paying attention to the Giants, but I knew Russell was their starting quarterback and assumed, because I saw it, I think last week he was playing. Apparently things were so bad, they promoted Jameis over Russell Wilson. Jameis Winston has been their QB3, as far as I know, the entire season, their emergency quarterback. They're going into this game. Russell's all like, all right, here we go, boys. Ready to go, ready to rock. And they're like, yeah, we're going to go with Jameis. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can look at this in terms of, is this better or is this worse? Number one, obviously, Packer fans are very gun-shy about backup quarterbacks, especially ones that we don't have a lot of tape on. Russell Wilson, I was struggling Like, I know he's a backup, but he's also just a veteran that's so bad right now. I was like, I think we got enough tape on this guy. Everything's going to be fine. Jameis is very different. First of all, completely different style of player compared to Russell Wilson, and I believe, based on the stats and whatnot, Jackson Dart. We all know Jameis is a guy that's like Brett Favre if Brett Favre wasn't a Hall of Famer. He's just got a rocket arm that likes to launch it down the field. To make matters worse, we have never even seen him play in a Giants uniform. The last time we saw him was last year when he played for Cleveland. And then, to make matters even worse, we can't even say, okay, let's look at Jameis compared to like the Brian Daboll scheme, because Daboll's out. So trying to assume, like, what is Kafka going to come up with Jameis? It's like, it's a fool's errand, man. No idea. And let me make it even a little worse for you. We all know Jameis is like a air it out guy, right? Well, here's the problem. If you look at his early career, his yards per attempt was 7.5, 7.2, 7.9, 7.9, 8.2, and 10.9. Like, it absolutely escalated and peaked and just got more and more and more and more. Actually, the 10.9 is a little smaller sample size thing, but still, like, it just got ramped up when he was in Tampa. Then he goes to New Orleans, and it's 7.3, 7.5, which is kind of normal, but pretty low, and then 5.6. And then in Cleveland, it was 7.2. So his career average, even with some lower years mixed in there, is 7.6. The last time we saw him, it was down to 7.2. Also, if you look at his big-time throw rate, it's very up and down and whatnot, but his average is about 4.3%. You saw as high as 7.1%. That was down to 3.5% this last year, which was like the second or third lowest he'd ever been. Now, big-time throw rate isn't just like chucking it. It's obviously also how often were they successful. But still, it's a pretty low number, which correlates with a pretty low yard per attempt metric, which is not what you generally see from Jameis. The only thing that's consistent is the turnovers. He had 13 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, just like his final year in Tampa when he had 33 touchdowns and 30 interceptions, or 19-14, or 19-11, or, they're always pretty close. In fact, in New Orleans, it was 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. The year before that was 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. It just, the only really good year that I can see, 2021, 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Like, that's real quarterback numbers. Congratulations. So, yeah, he is, in a game-to-game, in his season, he is just as likely to throw a touchdown as an interception. In fact, the last game he played was Week 15 against Kansas City. 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Although against Baltimore in Week 8, it was 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So, you just don't know, man. You just don't know, and I think that's what's scary, because the Packers don't seem to do a good job with this. Most teams do a good job with this, having the element of surprise. When they fire, the bounce back after firing a coach is a real thing. Teams outperform expectations when that happens. Add in a new quarterback who is not just some random scrub, but a guy that actually has played a lot of football in his time. We're talking 3,589 dropbacks. The positive side of this, though, is assuming he is that guy and wants to push the ball down the field, he's playing right into the Packers' hand. He is doing what every other team has essentially conceded that they just will not try. A big part of the reason nobody is scoring is because everybody is terrified of throwing the ball against the Packers for 2 main reasons. Number 1 is the pass rush with Micah Parsons and Rashawn, and now potentially Lucas Van Ness. And then number 2 is something that they started doing this last year prior to Micah, is that they stopped pushing the ball down the field because Xavier McKinney was just intercepting everything. That's where he started off the season with 1 billion picks, and then his numbers dipped, which part of that is just natural regression, but part of that is teams are like, all right, we're not doing that anymore. We're just not challenging, like, I don't think Xavier can get there anymore. So this year, nobody's really pushing the ball down the field. Now, maybe this is one of those things similar to the Denver Broncos, the undefeated Broncos against the undefeated Packers, where the Broncos basically said, we're not scared of you, we'll man you up. And it ended up working, and then everybody mimicked that, and then we sucked. Maybe this is one of those games where they're like, I'm not scared of your pass rush, and I'm not scared of your freaking safeties. I'm just going to attack down the field, and it works, and they score a bunch of points, and then we're kind of exposed. But I don't think so. So a lot of questions, and I don't know what the answers are in terms of what they're going to do. It's that there are people out there who believe that they're going to play right into our hands. We're going to see interceptions. We're going to see sacks. It's going to be a revival of the week 1 defense because this team is not going to be afraid to just go out there and just let it all hang out. Why not at this point? Ends up being kind of a slugfest. But I also think it's entirely possible that Jameis has the capability to calm that down and that they may ask him to do that, and they may lean on the run a little bit more and just play to what everybody else is doing. The game plan is throw short. It's what everybody else is doing. It's not working, which is why I don't know why nobody wants to challenge the Packers. I get the whole take what they're giving you thing, but nobody's scoring points. And at some point, you got to have some desire to score points. I don't know, whatever. We'll see what they do. But Jameis is the guy. So there's good news and bad news on all sides of this. It's a 2-8 team in complete disarray that fired their coach, that lost their quarterback, that benched their number 2 quarterback because he's so bad, put in the number 3. The number 3 guy plays right into our hand in terms of the style of play and all that stuff. On the bad side, the Packers are 0-2 the last 2 weeks. They're in complete disarray. They always struggle with these bounce-back games. They struggle for some reason against backup quarterbacks. Their record against backups is atrocious. I'm guessing because we don't game plan for them very well, and we do a much better job when we know what's coming at us, which is intuitive, but at the same time, dude, the guy sucks. Just don't get beat by him. So I can tell you what it is. I cannot tell you what's going to happen. These are the variables. How they arrange themselves, no idea. Okay, let's take a break. Again, that's quarterback. We'll rip through the rest of the offense, and then we'll get to the defense after that. By the way, just real quick, just run through the PFF stuff. Jameis has been relatively consistent. Obviously, his heyday was with Tampa kind of early. He did get into sort of the mid to low 70s range. He kind of settled into like the more mid 60s, which is what he's been ever since 2018, 68, 66, 66, 66, and now 69. I mean, he had 2 years where it was lower, but in both of them, it was less than 100 total attempts. So if you just get rid of those, I mean, even if you add in the 70s, he is so unbelievably consistent. 67, 72, 74, 68, 67, 66, 67, 67, I guess. I mean, he is very consistent in what he does. And maybe that's a good thing because we know what we're getting into. Maybe. Again, I don't know that we know, but assuming Jameis is still Jameis and they allow Jameis to be Jameis and Jameis wants to be Jameis, then we should have more than enough tape to be like, okay, this is what he's going to do and this is how we stop him. But I don't know. We'll freaking see how that goes. All right, we'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, taking a look at the wide receivers, they're in a pretty similar boat to us. You could argue a worse boat than us, considering we still have guys that we like playing wide receiver. It's a pretty decimated unit. The biggest issue, obviously, being Malik Nabers. Talked about this a little bit in Packernet After Dark with Matthew Golden when there was some, obviously people are upset about his production and whatnot. And, I just brought in the caveat that it's hard to expect the level of production of teams where you are the entire receiving core. That's not entirely true with the Giants, but it's much more close to true. Panthers being obviously the best example of that. But Malik Nabers was a phenomenal receiver, and they lost him week 4 to a torn ACL playing the Chargers, so that immediately just decimated their receiving capabilities. He was on a historic pace with 18 catches for 271 yards and 2 touchdowns in just 4 games. His right knee buckled trying to catch a deep ball in MetLife on the turf. He underwent surgery in October, is targeting return for the 2026 season. He caught a franchise record 109 passes as a rookie in 2024 with 1,204 yards and 7 touchdowns. Through 19 games, he ranks second only to Odell Beckham in most receptions in NFL history. He was Dart's security blanket and the only legitimate wide receiver 1 on the team. So, where does that leave us today? Well, their wide receiver 1 right now is their slot receiver, Wan'Dale Robinson. He's kind of the wide receiver 1 by default. He is a 2022 second-round pick, so he's not some, UDFA scrub or whatever. Not that draft position necessarily matters, as we'll find out soon enough. Decent player, not a field stretcher. He's a slot intermediate weapon type guy. He is the volume leader for the team without Neighbors. He's always been a decent volume guy. Right now, 69, call it a 70 PFF grade, which is decent enough. I think the biggest issue, though, is the inconsistency. A 70 grade is solid. The problem is it's on the back of 3 games. He had an 85 against Dallas, a 70 against Philly, and a 76 against Denver. Otherwise, it's been 60, 50, 50, 50, 50, 60, 60. So, I mean, he's never really terrible. He's usually average, and he has a couple good games so far this year. You would assume he's going to have a few more. Let's say he's got 3 more in him, hopefully not against us, but we'll see. He has been dealing with some ankle issues throughout the season, but should be fine for this game. He is kind of playing outside of his wheelhouse due to injuries. He's been more of a short yardage, you could almost call him like a gadget guy. He's been forced to kind of adapt, and you can see that when you look at his yards per reception, which have jumped. I mean, as a rookie, he was at about 10, which is relatively high anyways, but as of last year, it was 7.5 yards per reception. This year, 11.4. So 5 of that is yak yards, but still, they're again kind of being forced into the role of, especially starting week 6. It's been kind of every week 14, 16, 16, 5, and 10 yards per reception. So they need him to step up in that capacity of not just getting the ball a lot, but we can't just be dinking and dunking here. I mean, and if we do, we need you to get some yards after the catch, which the Packers are in that same boat of we need guys to step up in yak yards, which is tough when you lose Tucker Kraft and those types of guys. The number 2, the number 1 boundary guy right now, number 2 receiver is Darius Slayton. Slayton is somewhat similar in terms of his grades. He's at a 58 grade, which is well, actually, it's not similar. He's about average, but also in a negative way because it's also based on about 2 games. So take everything I said about Wandale and drop it about 10 points. He's almost average because he had a 70 against the Chargers and an 84 last week against Chicago. Otherwise, it's been 40, 50, 60, 40, 40, 50. So it's a little rough for Slayton. Former 5th-round pick. He's currently almost 29 years old. He is sort of the veteran of the group. He's been a long-time Giant. He's been there for a long time. Last year was, one of his worst years in terms of production. Also one of his worst years in terms of grades. He had a 59.9, which is slightly better than this year. So we are seeing a decline, which is weird being, you would expect that if he was maybe 32. Like, yeah, I think he's just cooked. At 28, he should have a little bit more left in the tank. So I don't know exactly what the issue is there. His abilities as sort of a field stretcher on the boundary became very vital for the team. That was a quote from the coaching staff. Unfortunately, the production just isn't really there. He does have 15 yards per reception, so he is much more of a field stretching boundary guy. But although the last 2 weeks have ticked up a bit, 5 receptions, 62 yards, and 4 receptions, 89 yards, he only had 1 game above 50 yards prior to these last 2 weeks. He also has 0 touchdowns so far on the season. I think a lot of people were starting to get excited about his potential, especially against Chicago. Again, he had a good game, made a spectacular one-handed catch, and finished with 89 yards. There is one major issue here, though. He is, and I don't have the official injury report for Friday yet. I'm recording this early, but let's say he is questionable for the game for sure. And to make matters worse, and again, we'll see what he is on Friday, he has a hamstring injury and has not practiced Wednesday or Thursday. Kafka described him as being day-to-day, which of course is better than week-to-week, in which case we could just rule him out. But it's not great when you're just not practicing, which, I mean, if you look at the injury report, it's kind of crazy. I mean, the Packers have been terrible all season in terms of like how big the list is. Usually they're okay. They not only have as many or more people on, but the amount of people that didn't participate is almost the size of our entire injury thing. So, for example, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 people on our injury report. Unacceptable, right? One of them didn't practice, and that's Nate Hobbs. 1 of 12. They have 16 people on their injury report. Half, 8, did not participate either Wednesday. Actually, Wednesday was worse, but by Thursday, 8. It was 9 on Wednesday. Also, 3 people were added to the injury report from Wednesday to Thursday. To make matters even worse, we have 3 of our 12 that were full participants. They have 0 that are full participants. Everybody else is limited. So of 16, 8 are limited and 8 are not practicing. And that's with an already injured squad. So we'll get to some of the other ones when we get there. Obviously, we did quarterback, and Jackson Dart is one of them. He's not practicing and he's not playing. But Darius Slayton is another one. This is wide receiver 2. It's their number 1 boundary guy. It is, to some degree, their field stretcher. We'll get to Hyatt in a second. But if he doesn't play, good Lord. Speaking of, number 3, Jalen Hyatt. Completely healthy, good, strapping young man. A lot of you probably remember him because we had the conversations of whether or not we should draft Mr. Hyatt. He was seen as a speed guy that maybe could complement whatever, blah, blah, blah. Didn't end up getting drafted by us. He got drafted by the Giants, and it actually was the 3rd round, despite the talk about him possibly being maybe late 1st, probably early 2nd. He ended up going at pick 74 in the 3rd round. Jalen Hyatt has been the invisible man. As upset as everybody is about Golden, yeah, you're getting that with Jalen Hyatt. It's been 3 years. In 3 years, he has 34 receptions for 452 yards and no touchdowns. This year, he's played just weeks 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Didn't get his first target until week 5. Didn't get his first reception in week 6. That was the only game this year he notched a single reception. He has 9 targets, 3 receptions, 17 yards on the season. This is their number 3 wide receiver, possibly their number 2 if Slayton can't go. This is the guy, by the way, you might maybe jog your memory. He really blew up because he destroyed Alabama. Just had a massive game. He's got that take the top off the defense type speed, all that kind of stuff, but is a complete non-factor. He's essentially been phased out of this is a 3rd round pick that's essentially been removed from the offense and is only playing due to injury. That's basically the reality. If they had more bodies that they even somewhat liked, Hyatt would not be playing. He'd be a healthy scratch right now. In fact, he was a healthy scratch in week 8. I don't even know how that's possible considering the situation that they're in, but that was the situation. He also apparently has missed practice for a non-football dental issue. So I don't know. I don't know, man. He's just doing whatever he wants. It doesn't matter. But as far as his grades, his rookie year, which is the only year he really did anything, 23 receptions, 373 yards. He had a 58 grade. And that's one of those things, too, where you look at it and like, okay, that was his rookie year. Hopefully we get a little bit more next year. It went down to 8 receptions, 62 yards, 49.5 grade. He's at 17 yards, 49.9 grade right now. His receiving grades through the year are 55, 53, 52, 55, and 54. It's close to 60 because he doesn't really do much in the offense, enough for him to be positive or negative, but he's consistently drifting below average on his play on the field. They also have a couple rookie guys, Bo Collins and Bryce Ford Wheaton. Not massive names, but they're also on IR, so any hope at finding some new young talent to come in and breathe life into this? Nope. Depth outside of that, Isaiah Hodgins, who they signed November 13th. He's expected to play kind of situationally. Gunnar Olszewski, primarily a return guy, but, again, with the injuries, who knows? Jamison Crowder, depth guy. So we'll see who gets rotated in and not or whatever, but that's the group. And the game plan should be pretty straightforward. You bracket Wandale and that's it. Let's get Wandale removed from the equation, and best of luck to everybody else out there. At the running back situation, it's a little bit more straightforward, especially with Cam Scatterbo being out. Scatterbo was not only exciting and fun and all that kind of stuff, but was their top back. 101 attempts, led the team by a mile, 410 yards. He still leads the team in attempts and yards. 4.1 yards per attempt, leads everybody except Jackson Dart and Russell Wilson, the quarterbacks. 5 touchdowns, which leads everybody except Jackson Dart. He had an 81 rushing grade. Jackson Dart had an 80. Those are the only two that were up in that range. Both of them are out. Tyrone Tracy is going to be taking over as that guy. He currently has a 67.5 rushing grade, 3.9 yards per attempt. So again, injuries have kind of dictated a situation away from what they really liked. You know, the Jackson Dart Cam Scatabo combo with Malik Neighbors. I mean, you're starting to build, slap a tight end in there. We got a pretty nice situation going on. By the way, I completely left out the tight ends, and that's my bad. I'm realizing how much time this is taking, so I'm trying to hurry. Daniel Bellinger, 4th-round pick, 65 grade, 200 yards and a touchdown so far. He is currently being outsnapped by Theo Johnson, last year's 4th-round pick. Very high targets. Kind of throughout the season. Tons of receptions last week. 8 targets, 7 receptions, 75 yards. He had an 80 PFF grade. A little bit of an outlier, though. He's pretty consistently around the 60s. So they're not elite, but also at the same time, when you look at the wide receiver situation, you have to assume they're going to lean pretty heavily on tight ends and running backs in the pass game as well. Okay, anyways, circling back. Some comments from Mike Kafka. He says, Tyrone's been grinding. His patience behind the line and pass pro have improved. Unfortunately, a lot of that is coach speak, as the production hasn't really matched all that. And even the coach speak is kind of coming from a place of like, look, man, he's trying. You know what I mean? Whenever a coach says he's working real hard, they're probably not dominating on the field. So it's actually pretty crazy. I mean, when you look at, like, they got rid of Saquon and he goes and he dominates somewhere else. And you get rid of Daniel Jones and he leaves and he dominates somewhere else. And, obviously Xavier McKinney is mixed into that as well. But you get rid of these guys and you're a laughing stock, but you kind of brought in people that are working. You got rid of Daniel Jones. Hi, you idiots. Like, yeah, we got Jackson Dart. We kind of like him. You got rid of Saquon. Yeah, we like this Cam Scatabo guy. But then they all get hurt. I mean, it's unfortunate because they should be a better team than they are. They should be rewarded for actually doing good stuff for once. And unfortunately, the freaking injury bug has ruined that. Not that I'm upset about it, but I mean, I guess I should be, because we'd probably be better if it was just straight up Jackson Dart, Cam Scatabo. It's all their backups that are going to screw us up. Anyways, Cam Scatabo was a 2024 5th-round pick. It was kind of billed as like a thunder and lightning combination between Tracy and Scatabo, and obviously it was to some degree working. Tracy, by the way, last year, 840 yards, 4.4 yards per attempt, and a 70 grade, which is not far off from where he's at. But I think there's sort of a feeling of he did a really good job as a rookie. And then I think he kind of got pushed to the side, and now we're kind of bringing him back like, hey, welcome back. You want to be that guy again? And they're hoping he can get back to that form a little bit. Not a terrible product last week. Everybody had a good game against Chicago. I don't know why they couldn't just win the frickin' game. But 14 attempts, which is his highest of the season, 71 yards, 5.1 yards per attempt. Again, the whole thunder and lightning thing, Tyrone Tracy is much more of a home run hitter than Scatabo. He had 6 runs of 20-plus as a rookie, including 2 that went for more than 40. He also is not a massive part of the passing offense, but he is a part of it. He's had at least a reception in the last 3 games, 6 in total in the last 3 games, so, 2 a game. And they go for typically under 20 yards. In fact, the yards have been 14, 19, and 0. So he's seen as kind of a capable receiving back, especially with his home run ability if you can get him out in space. They don't seem to be using that a ton, though, so I don't know. After that, you got Devin Singletary, reliable veteran guy, not very explosive, but, just kind of a steady Eddie 3.3 yards per carry guy. And then they've got, again, Scatabo's on IR, Eric Gray is on PUP, so pretty rough. Finally, the offensive line. This is a pretty classic case of they got 1 stud and 4 people. Left tackle, they've got Andrew Thomas. That is their top-tier premier player. He was the number 4 overall selection in 2020. Year 1 was a little rocky, but after that, he was just off to the races and has been a phenomenal guy ever since. The biggest issue with him has been injuries. Missed most of 2023 with a hamstring injury. 2024 foot surgery. 2025 he came back eventually, starting in week 3. I think it's one of those things too where they felt as though he was kind of easing back in after the injury and is now fully healthy and kind of back to his normal self. From what I can tell via PFF, he never really struggled. The run blocking maybe a little bit more so. but the last 2 weeks have been 81 run blocking, 88 pass blocking, and 92 run blocking, 85 pass blocking. So he is a good football player. At left guard, they have a guy that we should all be familiar with, Mr. John Runyon. I always liked Runyon, although that last year, him and Myers are kind of in the same boat. They seem to be ascending and going in the right direction, and then something fell off, and he has not rebounded. It's not great. He's 28 years old these days. He currently has a 52 run blocking grade, 58 pass blocking. There are glimmers of his old pass blocking form. He had an 87 against the Chargers week 4, 82 against Denver week 7, 74 week 9 against San Francisco. But he also has a lot of really bad games, which I don't remember seeing a ton of when he was in Green Bay. He had a 28 grade against Kansas City, 41 against New Orleans, 29 against Philly, and 48 against Philly. So, again, on average, it's very up and down, but on average, 58 pass blocking. Run blocking is a little bit more consistent, not as volatile. 52 overall. His run blocking has been very consistent. The pass blocking was the thing where, again, for 2 years, 2021 and 2022, he was kind of a stud, and then everything fell off. I don't know if that perfectly correlates with our offensive line coach becoming our offensive coordinator. When did that happen? I'm about to get real mad here. Not quite. He was promoted in 2022. He still had his best year in 2022, but then completely fell off. It's not... You could still say that has something to do with it, although the other thing that you could easily correlate to that is moving from left guard to right guard, although he's back to left guard for the Giants, and it's still not going well. I don't know. Either way, the glimmer of hope for our former 6th-round pick out of Michigan has gone. Also the son of the guy that hands down a lot of fines and whatnot. Guy who was a very violent and dirty player who's now fining people for playing dirty is pretty funny stuff. At center, they've had some injury stuff. One of the guys currently on the injury report, he's been limited all week with a shin injury, is John Michael Schmitz. He is the actual starter. He's a 2023 second rounder. He has been banged up all year. He missed week 7 with a concussion, suffered a shin injury week 9. Did not play last week, is not expected to play against the Green Bay Packers. Let me just double check that. So the quote by Kafka is, he's pushing, but will err on caution. I guess it all just kind of depends. Again, I don't have the Friday thing. I'll make sure to end with that before we close this out. We'll get that final report and get some answers on some of this stuff. But John Michael Schmitz is the starter. If he can't go, the presumed backup is going to be Austin Schlottman, 2018 UDFA. Kind of an interesting situation because the guy has been absolute dog crap through 2022. Spent 3 years in Denver, which is where he was picked up as a UDFA. His pass blocking grades the final 2 years were 25 and 26. He went to Minnesota in 22, had a 46 pass blocking grade. And then in Minnesota's year 2, he had his highest run blocking grade of about a 60 and a pass blocking grade of 72.3. Not a massive sample size, but you're talking 250 offensive snaps, 71 run blocking snaps, 178 pass blocking snaps. He goes to the Giants. He played weeks 6, 7, 9, and 10 due to all the injuries. His run blocking grade overall is a 62. His pass blocking grades have been 81, 73, 82, and 75. He hasn't had a bad game all year. Currently has an 81 pass blocking grade. He's given up 0 sacks, 0 hits, and 2 hurries in his 209 total snaps, 123 pass blocking. So I don't know that this is a downgrade. You could say it's an outlier, but he hasn't been bad since 2022 and has been solid ever since the start of 2023. And again, we're talking about about 500 total snaps. So I might be rooting for the starter to come back. And maybe that kind of leans into the coach being like, yeah, we're going to be super cautious with him. Maybe it's, dude, if you got a hangnail, we're putting the Schlottman guy in because we're going to like him more anyways. I don't know. Then at right guard, they got Greg Van Roten, or Rotten, if you want to think of him as a WWE wrestler. He's taken every snap but one so far this year, 677 snaps. So I think we're safe to say that he's good there. He's not on the injury report. Everything seems perfectly fine. The only thing that is not fine is that he is 35 years old. So Mr. Van Roten, almost 36 years old. Playing decent football, 66 pass blocking, 61 run blocking. Obviously, there's variability in that, but that's kind of what you're getting. Decent enough. Should be a guy that we can take advantage of. That goes for most of this offensive line, not including the left tackle. But, of course, if you have Micah Parsons, I do expect him to be able to win against even the best tackles on occasion. That's your job. But, he's fine. And then right tackle might be their biggest story. It's a little bit of an old story, but it's an oldie but a goodie. They've got Jermaine Illuminor, and the only reason that's interesting is because if you're even a little bit paying attention, you might be thinking, well, whatever happened to that Evan Neal fella? The Evan Neal fella is, I mean, as much as Packer fans want to hear, and I know being compared to the Giants isn't great, but it's great context for Packer fans that think we just have the worst drafting in the world. Evan Neal was a number 7 overall selection in 2022. Number 7. You know, last time we had the number 7 pick, because I don't. He was a complete and total liability at the right tackle spot. He had a 48 run blocking, 42 pass blocking grade as a rookie. That was 51 run blocking and 38 pass blocking. It got even worse in 2023. In 2024, his run blocking went up to an 81, which is great, but the pass blocking was a 49.6, which also improved, but still not good. So in 2025, they essentially had given up on Evan Neal. They declined his fifth-year option. They tried to move him to guard in camp. Then eventually he just becomes a healthy scratch. They actually tried to trade him before the deadline. Nobody's interested. Not even the Packers, who love these kinds of, apparently have become enamored with the idea of these early picks that maybe we can fix them. Maybe they gave up on that. Or the Giants just wanted too much, which is literally anything, which is too much. I don't know. But in 2024, they did add Illuminor as well as John Runyon. Illuminor was in a competition with Evan Neal. He obviously easily wins that job, which is probably at which point they kicked Neal into guard. Like, well, can you win that freaking job? And of course he couldn't. So it's a bad deal for Evan Neal, who also is sitting over there with a hamstring injury and hasn't practiced all week. But even if he was practicing, he wouldn't be playing because he is essentially a bust that will be probably a long-term backup because he's going to float around for a while because he's 6'7", 350 and presumably has a ton of athleticism. It's going to be a lot of teams wanting to give him a chance. I mean, he'll be released presumably after this year. Again, they declined his fifth-year option, so he'll float around out there. Somebody will pick him up. I'm willing to bet the Packer fans will absolutely be all in on Evan Neal, and maybe they should be, and maybe the Packers will get him. I doubt he produces, but that'll be kind of that situation. But anyways, Illuminor is the guy. That is their right tackle. It's worth noting he did jump up on the injury report on Thursday. He was not on the injury report on Wednesday. Has a pec injury, but he's been pretty decent. I mean, 31 years old. He's always been, I guess, kind of decent, which is surprising. I don't remember him being very good. I hear his name all the time. He played for Baltimore, New England, Las Vegas, and now the Giants. Since 2017, he's been around fifth-round pick. His pass blocking is decent. First 2 years in Baltimore weren't great. Since then, 70, 70, 60, 70, 60, 70, 70. He's having his best year as a pass blocker with a 78 grade. The run blocking is pretty atrocious, but I mean, as a Packer fan, you can admire. I mean, he's putting up Rasheed Walker numbers as far as just PFF grades go. So there's nothing wrong with that. Again, 31 years old. He's obviously not a long-term solution. Go ahead.
Someone is at the front door.
Thank you for alerting me to that. If he can't go, however, that changes things rather drastically. I believe that is going to be Marcus Mbo, who, again, for the draft people out there, might sound a little familiar. Where have I heard that before? Fifth-round pick this year in 2025 out of Purdue. Never know exactly what you're going to get out of rookie, but it hasn't been great. His run blocking has been fantastic, 78. The pass blocking, though, again, very small sample size, well, running too, but 36 pass blocking grade. I mean, this is real bad. So he's only played in 3 games. He started in 1. Well, maybe that's not he's pass blocked in 3 games. He started 1. 106 total snaps. He's already given up 2 sacks, 6 hits, and 4 hurries. To put that into context, Illuminor has played 3.5 times the amount and has given up 3 sacks. So Mbo kind of adjusting to how many snaps Illuminor has had. You're talking, what, 7? 7? Also 6 hits compared to 1 for Illuminor. 4 hurries compared to 6. I mean, he's in total, Mbo has given up 12 pressures and Illuminor has given up 10. That's crazy. So, again, I'll update this when I can. I'm assuming he's going to play, but if he can't, that's big. That's a big drop-off from Illuminor to Mbo, if that is, in fact, who takes over. Maybe things have been so bad they'll find somebody else. I don't know. We ain't going that deep today. Let's take our final break. We'll look at the defense, and then we'll get up out of here. Take a break. We'll be right back. All right, let's get started on the defense. As usual, we'll go inside out. Main guy here is a familiar commodity, Dexter Lawrence, former number 17 overall selection. Via the PFF grades, he is not having his best year by a long shot. His peak was 2022. That's when he kind of exploded. He had a 92 PFF grade, 81 run defense, 92 pass rush, 70 pressures, and 9 sacks on 577 attempts. The next year, 93, 90, and 93 in those 3 categories. 65 pressures on 446 attempts, which is phenomenal, and 6 sacks. 2024 was similar, 90, 84, 81. A little bit less, obviously, across the board, but, still a little bit something there. He did lead in sacks, so most people, if you ask them, they'll probably just say, oh, yeah, he was at his best last year. No, he was not. His best was probably 2022, and 2023 was his peak. He started his decline in 2024. It was 36 pressures on 332 attempts, so now we're just a little bit above 10%. This year, he's gone from a 90 overall grade to a 74 grade. His run defense has gone from an 84 to a 50, which I don't understand. His pass rush is still at an 84, but that's down from the 93 2 years ago. And he has 18 pressures and 0 sacks on 309 attempts. So he went from a 12% guy down to a 10%-ish guy. He's currently at like less than 6% pressure rate and 0 sacks. Now his pass rush grade, again, is still an 84. So presumably there's a ton of double teams and everything else to take him out of this. But regardless, he has been made essentially useless. When you're sub 5% pressure rate and 0 sacks, that's a problem. And again, he's 28. Everybody on this team is 28, acting like they're geriatrics. Well, time to hang it up, boys. He, like everybody else, has dealt with a bunch of injuries, so maybe that's part of it. I don't know. But it seems to me to be, Sexy Dexy here is trying to put the team on his back, but there's just nobody around him that can help. And so that's kind of the problem in terms of the failures. First and foremost, of Dexter Lawrence having his worst year, at least, since his explosion in talent, but also just when everybody else is bad. That's not good. Part of the issues began when they got rid of Pro Bowler Leonard Williams, sent him to the Seahawks, and they've tried to kind of replace him ever since. Guys like Ashawn Robinson and Raheem Nunez-Roches, but it just ain't working. They did sign Roy Robertson Harris. They drafted Darius Alexander in the 3rd round. Again, the hope is we'll bolster this unit. It'll get Dexter kind of back to his normal self. It has not gone well. They cannot stop anybody on the ground. Again, he went from a 90 run defense grade for like between 80 and 90 for 3 straight years. He's currently at a 50. That's shocking. His highest graded game was week 1, where he had a 76 grade. That was his only game in the 70s, and his last 4 games have been 48, 34, 49, 51 against the run. Terrible. And he is, as much as he's been a good pass rusher, he's a nose tackle. He's 342 pounds. This is his thing, is run defense. And if you look at it, I think the last 3 to 4 weeks, essentially teams have sold out on the double team against Dexter Lawrence. I think the entire game plan is just double Dexter and dare anybody else to do anything, and nobody's doing it. The number 2 guy is Roach, Raheem Nunez-Roches. Veteran run guy, re-signed. We do have an updated injury thing, which we'll get to, but I just want to take it one at a time as we go through here. Mr. Roches didn't participate all week with a toe injury and is doubtful in this game. The injuries are absolutely brutal for this team. I mean, it's crazy. So again, they got one guy. They've been trying as hard as they can to find other people to help Dexter Lawrence. The group is not only not good, but they're not even healthy now. Their number 2 defensive tackle, Roach, as they call him, doubtful to play in this game. They also have Chauncey Golston, the defensive tackle, who is out with a neck injury. And so now with that news that has just been announced from where I'm at, I'm going to assume he's out. You have Dexter Lawrence, your superstar. Then you have your defensive tackle, Roy Robertson Harris, who's going to be your number 2. He's been playing already. He's got 374 snaps so far this season. He has a 59 run defense grade, 52 tackling, 55 pass rush, 11 pressures, and 0 sacks on 189 attempts. 32 years old. So, I mean, generally speaking, when I see 6'5", 290, I'm thinking, okay, so this is your pass rusher, right? 11 of 190, 5.7%. That's almost exactly what Dexter Lawrence is at, and 0 sacks. So, I mean, yikes. Then they've got their new young buck in Darius Alexander. I'm not sure how much I expect from him. He has been kind of ramping up his snap counts, partially, I'm assuming, out of necessity, but third-round pick has been terrible. He has a 40 PFF grade, 28 run defense, 28 tackling, 60 pass rush, 7 pressures and 1 sack on 119 attempts. 7 divided by 119. He's at 5.8. Every single one of these guys is at sub 6%. That's terrible. Terrible. And a 28 pass rush grade to boot, or run defense, I mean. So this is one of the major issues with the Giants. They cannot stop the run. So this is kind of the opposite of the immovable object and the unstoppable force situation where the Packers can't run the ball and the Giants can't stop it. They also have a couple, well, they don't really have a couple pieces. I don't know if they're going to elevate some people. They also have DJ Davidson. He is the backup Dexter Lawrence. So he's got snaps and all that stuff, but I don't know that he's as pivotal because they don't need a new Dexter Lawrence. They need help around Dexter Lawrence, and that needs to be Roy Robertson Harris and Darius Alexander, both of which are kind of dog crap, which is causing Dexter Lawrence, at least his output, to be dog crap. Again, PFF is giving him good grades because they can see the tape and see that he's actually playing at a pretty high level, all things considered. And what you need to consider is literally every snap he's being double-teamed. And when I say literally, I don't necessarily mean literally, but I might mean literally. I don't know, but it's close, if not. Off the edge, I already mentioned Golston, not that he was getting a ton anyways. Looks like he's been out for a lot, but just saying. The top guy to pay attention to here is Brian Burns. That's the guy everybody's making a big fuss about. Brian Burns was a former number 16 overall selection in 2019. He is nowhere near as elite as I think everybody would have him out to be. And again, it's because of the sacks. He has 10 sacks on the season, which is a big number for a season total, much less halfway through the season. He has a sack in every game except 2. He has multiple sacks in 3 different games, 2 against Washington, 2 against Philly, 2 against Denver. Last week was only his second week of no sacks. So he's a big sack guy. With that said, though, he's about a 10% pressure guy. He has a 78 grade, which is good, not great, and the biggest reason why is because he's very volatile. He has 3 basically elite games and a bunch of really bad games. 70-70, 90-80, 50-60-60, 40-90-50. He's kind of all over the map. Presumably, if I had to guess, at 250 pounds, he's a pretty pure speed rusher. And if he can win, he can absolutely win. If he can't, then he absolutely can't. So I don't exactly know where Giants fans fall on Brian Burns. Sometimes when you say things like he's not as good as people say, they get kind of pissy. And other times they're like, yeah, dude, he's a freaking bust. Depends on the fan base a little bit. Bust is obviously an exaggeration. But I know I heard like Packers media talking to Matt LaFleur like, oh boy, this Brian Burns guy, like what is it that makes him so good? And again, he's certainly dangerous. But, he's been around. He spent, 5 years at Carolina, got a big paycheck from the Giants to come over. Again, the sack numbers are there. He's a double-digit sack guy. I mean, he's like a minimum 9. He's got 9 3 years, 10 2 years, and he had 13 for Carolina in 2022. The issue is the pressures are kind of inconsistent, and this year it's, again, sitting at about 10%. His run defense also is a 57, which is not fantastic, and that's a little inflated by 2 games, weeks 1 and 4, which is to say since week 4, he hasn't really done, it's average at best as a run defender, which I guess is fine considering, he's 250. I'll take average at 250. It does suck, though, when you got a bunch of small guys that can't stop the run and your interior guys also really can't stop the run. That's when it becomes a problem. The other guy that is kind of the big breakout superstar stud guy, depending on who you ask, is Kayvon Thibodeaux. Now, that's a massive exaggeration from what I'm looking at from a guy who his grades the last 2 years have been 69 and 66. His pass rush grades 72 and 58. He has 32 pressures on 324 attempts, which is like exactly 10% and just 3 sacks. So I don't know if that's much to write home about. But it's seen as like a really good duo, Brian Burns and Thibodeaux and all that kind of stuff. However, it was announced that Kayvon Thibodeaux will be out in this game. He has a shoulder injury. So, if nothing else, regardless of how you feel about these two guys, it's a decent duo. And the number 2, I mean, imagine like the Packers now, if it was Rashawn and Van Ness. Let's take Micah out of the equation because they don't have a Micah. If we had Rashawn and Van Ness got hurt, that's kind of where they're at. So that changes things a lot. If I'm just looking at their depth chart, behind Thibodeaux is Golston. Well, Golston's out. Behind Brian Burns is Abdul Carter. Now, that name may also sound familiar as the number 3 overall selection in 2025. That should be the main story here, right? Why the heck are we talking about Kayvon Thibodeaux when they just drafted Abdul Carter, who, by the way, in the offseason was I remember looking at videos of him and people are like, dude, this guy's a freaking cheat code. Like, he's just walking past offensive linemen. This is stupid. Well, so far he has 33 pressures on 295 attempts, 11%, and 1 sack that came week 1. He hasn't had a sack since. So again, Packer fans who are frustrated that Rashawn isn't good enough and Van Ness isn't good enough and Micah's not good enough for some stupid reason, number 3 overall selection is pressuring at about a 10% rate with 1 sack on the season. And that's with all the attention being paid to the 2 guys in front of you. And, by the way, all the double teams are being drawn by Dexter Lawrence, which is a negative for every single one of these edge rushers. But, he's young, and I'm sure he's due for a frickin' breakout game. He did have 1 really good game week 4, 92 pass rush grade. He had 8 pressures in that game, which is a lot. No sacks, but a lot of pressures. It's not impossible he comes in and is just a freaking game wrecker. Same is true for Brian Burns. He could absolutely just go off. These two should be a massively elite duo, but that's not how this is produced so far. And it seems like the Giants are hell-bent on their 250-pound edge rushers because they've got 3 of them when you include Kayvon Thibodeaux. But you can say, well, that's normal for 3-4. Not really. Packers always had 275, Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary. They like the bigger guys. Giants seem to be leaning pretty hard into the smaller speed bend guys. Anywho, that's going to basically be the duo with only 2 other guys. Victor Dimukeje, who has a shoulder injury and was limited Wednesday and Thursday, full participant and will play. But Dimukeje, if that's how you say his name, he will be in there, as well as, what the heck is that? Taman Fox. Dimukeje is a 6th-round pick in 2021. He has played 14 snaps this season. No idea what to expect from him. And then Taman Fox will be the other one. He is a 2022 undrafted free agent. Crazy to think that this is number 3 and 4, so we're probably going to actually see a good amount of these 2 guys. Both of them in the 260 range, so a little bit bigger. But he has played 16 total snaps 8 of them as a pass rusher with 1 pressure, which is what you're looking for, but he just hasn't played, basically. So, wild and crazy stuff. And then at linebacker, interior, Bobby Okereke and Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles are their starting linebackers. Like everything else, this is a complete disaster, catastrophe, etc., as far as the injuries are concerned. The plan that they had set in motion last year was, okay, we got our green dot play caller in Bobby Okereke. Actually gave him a pretty big deal in 2023. And then they put Micah McFadden next to him. So that was going to be the future. In 2025, that all completely fell apart. Micah McFadden got put on IR, foot injury, not eligible to return until week 13. McFadden's replacement was Darius Massaw. He got put on IR with an ankle injury. That has forced Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles to become the starting linebacker next to Bobby Okereke. To make bad situation even worse, the guys that they have that they really like, not going good at all. Bobby Okereke, who again got a bunch of money, he had basically his breakout year at Indy. The Giants are like, okay, come over here, we're going to make you that dude. It went great, right? 79 grade in year 1, run defense, tackling, coverage, it was all solid. Year 2, not as good, but still good. Year 3, in the midst of this disastrous collapse, 53 grade, 45 run defense, 52 tackling, 72 pass rush. It doesn't do that a ton. And 60 coverage. Basically the lowest across the board since 2021, the lowest that he's had as far as overall and in a lot of categories since 2020. It's just not going well. He hasn't had a single good game this year, according to PFF. 69 is his highest, but if you don't round it, not one. So even the guy that they like, that was supposed to be in there, is that dude. Then you got Flanagan-Fowles, who is, holy crap, 2019 UDFA, spent 5 years in San Francisco. His final year in San Francisco at a 30 grade. He has improved. He's currently at a 44 PFF grade, 41 run defense, 36 tackling, 52 coverage. Bad, bad, bad. Beyond that, I believe the next man up, although he hasn't taken snaps this year, and Swayze Bozeman has, so I could be wrong about this, but I think Neville Hewitt might be the next man up. Maybe not. He's kind of been relegated to special teams this year, so it might be Swayze Bozeman, who's played 17 snaps this year. I don't know. The bottom line is, again, they're decimated with injuries. It's also important to keep an eye on because guys are going to go out in this game. You're going to see people, going down. They can't quite get up. If you see receivers go down, which we're going to talk about that, somebody already did, linebackers go down, defensive tackles go down, edge rushers go, like they are shockingly thin at just about every position. If anybody goes down, you got to do a deep dive to find out who this next person coming in is. Somebody that we haven't seen since, the XFL or something. All right, so that's that general situation. And then we have corners. Again, just looking at the depth chart, they've got Paulson Adebo, Cordell Flott, and Drew Phillips. However, of course, we have to kick it over to the injury report, and Paulson Adebo has a knee injury. He is questionable to play. I'm guessing he's going to play because somebody's got to freaking play here. He is the only corner showing up on the injury report, but, we'll see how that goes. A little bit of a background on this unit. If you go back to 2023, again, just kind of looking at like the big picture, what were they trying to do? What are they trying to do? Whatever. They had veteran Adoree Jackson. Then they go out and get a first-round pick, Deonte Banks, right? And I liked Banks. Banks was a physical, aggressive, I was kind of in on Banks a little bit. But 2024 is when everything kind of fell apart. Banks was not the dude. Sophomore slump, allowed a passer rating of 120.0. He was benched mid-game in week 8 of last season due to a quote-unquote lack of hustle, which is freaking brutal to have a coach bench you and then publicly say, yeah, it's because dude doesn't give a crap, doesn't put any effort in. So that is when they said, okay, we need a brand new plan, which is a very common thing apparently for the Giants to just be like, all right, new plan, that didn't freaking work. So what they did is they go out and get Paulson Adebo from the Saints. That is going to be their CB1. Again, injured. We'll see how it goes. In the slot, they got Drew Phillips, 2024 third-round pick, and he's kind of the guy they're really excited about. All right, Drew Phillips comes in as a rookie, third-round pick out of Kentucky, 79 PFF grade, 78 run defense grade, 77 coverage grade, gave up just 370 yards, gave up 1 touchdown but had a pick, no pass breakups, which kind of sucks, but right, that's that dude. He had a top 10 PFF grade as a rookie and is their full-time nickel guy. The issue is he also, maybe not as bad as Deonte Banks, but he also has a pretty severe sophomore slump. Now, this might just be one of those things where when everything is falling apart, everything's falling apart. Like, for example, if there's no pass rush, you can't cover somebody forever. It's the same in both directions, right? But things can spiral up as well as they can spiral down, and I think everybody's going to have their worst year here. He's at a 57 grade, down from a 79. His run defense is from a 78 to a 62. And his coverage went from a 77 to a 56. He gave up 373 yards last year. He's already at 390. He gave up 1 touchdown all of last year. He's already at 2. The positive side is he also has doubled his interceptions and has went from 0 to 6 pass breakups. But if you're looking at the grades, and I know some people don't, some people just look at everything else, like, well, he has 2 picks and 6 pass breakups, so he's better than last year. Okay, well, that's fine. But via PFF, grading snap to snap, down to down, it's been rough. It's also worth noting 1 pick and 3 of those pass breakups, so 50% of his total production came in 1 game against the Chargers. Anywho, that leaves that additional boundary spot, which has been a battle between Deonte Banks, who again had that sophomore slump, got benched, the whole thing, obviously trying to reassert himself. He is in a battle with 2022 third-rounder Cordell Flott for the cornerback 2 job. As you might expect, Flott won the job. Flott right now has a 75 coverage grade, which is actually pretty solid, but a 45 run defense grade. So the run defense is not good. The coverage overall grade is. However, Flott also very volatile. His 75 grade is comprised of 60, 80, 50, 60, 60, 70, 90, the last 2 weeks, 39, 48. He's given up 252 yards, 0 touchdowns, a pick, and 6 pass breakups. The stats are phenomenal. I don't know if this is just a function of nobody's throwing against this team because they're just running, because that's just what you can do against them very easily. I don't know. But the grades, again, the grades are good. But if you look at like the last 2 weeks where he was graded out horrifically, he gave up very little yards, no touchdowns. Like he had no picks or pass breakups, but statistically, nobody's mad about it. If Paulson Adebo doesn't go, presumably Deonte Banks will come in and fill that spot. So far, it doesn't appear Deonte Banks has gotten better. In fact, he's gotten worse from year 1 to year 2, from year 2 to year 3. Actually, his coverage grade has been relatively consistent. It was a 49, then a 50. It's currently a 47. In his 3 years, obviously not playing every single snap, but in his 3 years, he's given up 450 yards, 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 15 pass breakups. So he does have the pass breakups. But man, does this guy give up touchdowns. Cordell Flott, for the record, in 4 years has given up 5. Having played more snaps. I mean, it's close, but he's played, it's actually very, like 50 more snaps. But 5 compared to 12. Paulson Adebo has been playing for 5 years, has, instead of 2,000 snaps, he's played 1,500 more snaps. He's also given up 12 touchdowns. And by the way, it's been 3 in the last 3 years. In the last 3 years, he's probably played about as many snaps, and he's given up 3 touchdowns. It's just, that's crazy. So, if Paulson Adebo doesn't play, that's a big deal because Banks is a pretty big downgrade, and yes, try to throw touchdowns against him because for some reason that is his Achilles heel. And then we got safety. It's about the only position where you look and go, maybe corner a little bit too, but it's the only position you look at the names and go, oh, yeah, I know those guys. I mean, technically, I know the defensive tackles too, but it's not, it's kind of like I remember him when he sucked for the Bears 5 years ago kind of thing. Tyler Nubin and Javon Holland, both of these guys are, boy, oh boy, what a sad story. I looked at the names and thought, oh, that's a good duo right there. Yeah. And again, they're going out doing the things to replace the guys, right? They go out and they get rid of Xavier McKinney. Also lost their dude Pinnock, whatever, to the 49ers. So we got to start over. 2024, they go out and get Jalen Mills. That didn't really work. They were forced to start their fourth rounder, Dane Belton. Not great, but that also gave him an opportunity to put in Tyler Nubin a little bit before he was ready, but, whatever. But at the end of the day, Nubin did okay as a rookie. 58 coverage grade is not phenomenal, but 77 run defense, 79 tackling, and 66 overall. As a rookie, in my mind, if you're in the mid to high 60s, that's fine, assuming, we can kind of take that next step. Unfortunately, he went backwards. Another sophomore slump. The second-round pick for the Giants currently has a 55 grade, 42 run defense, 43 tackling, 59 coverage. He's given up 252 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 1 pass breakup, 123.2 passer rating when targeted. Again, it's unfortunate for them. I mean, hopefully it helps us, but once we're done with them, I'll go back and say it's unfortunate for the Giants because it feels like they've acquired good people and everything has fallen apart to the point where it's just negatively affecting everybody. Nubin is failing because everybody else is failing, and everybody else is failing because everybody else is failing. I don't know that. It's possible that everybody's just bad and we're all just learning at the same time, but usually, because everything is so interlinked, that's what you're seeing. So it's a question of, same with Drew Phillips and Tyler Nubin, you look at them and go, man, I wonder, first of all, can they bounce back if we can fix this freaking thing and patch up the holes? I mean, is this honestly just as simple as finding a defensive tackle? Is that like the missing battery for this defense? I mean, that's what it was for us when we lost, what's his freaking name? Get him back. And it's like, defense is back, we're good. But seemed relatively promising, not quite so much. But obviously 2015, they go out and get another guy to put next to Tyler Nubin, and they go get a freaking superstar, right? They go get the one and only Javon Holland. Very good safety for Miami, although kind of tricky because it was like elite and then good and then elite and then like mid. It was like 90-60, 90-60. And I've seen that before. I think it was like Darnell Savage had that. Some other guys had that, and it's like, what is that thing? Like, what are you doing? Well, unfortunately for the Giants, it ended on a low note. He had a 63 grade last year. This year, they go out, presumably pay him a ton of money. I don't really care enough to look it up, but I would assume. And Miami may have possibly fleeced him. The good news for them is he has a very good run defense and tackling grade, which they need, 80 run defense, 85 tackling. But his pass rush grade is a 56. His coverage is a 50, which is not good. So he has a 58 overall grade. It's the lowest of his career so far. He does have a couple decent games, but they were middle of the season. His last game was one of his worst against Chicago, 44 overall, 41.7 was his coverage grade. Again, statistically, nothing shows up. But the danger is, and this is where people get annoyed with PFF, like, he had a good game. What are you talking about? The danger is, essentially what this is warning you about is that something is wrong, something is broken, and eventually that will get exploited. Even if you can't see it now, somebody can see it, and they're going to, if he doesn't fix it, they're going to take advantage of that. The Bears could have punished him and just didn't, which makes sense. That sounds like a Caleb Williams thing. Like, there's a guy open down there, like, whatever, I'm going to scramble and do some weird sidearm bull crap. If anything happens, they still have Dane Belton floating around that they could plug back in. This is the duo. Again, should be a very good duo, just has not been fantastic. Lastly, just looking at their special teams, hilarious. I mean, I went into this like, well, at least this will be normal. I'm sure they just have like a kicker, and this will be easy to go through and not take 45,000 hours. Nope. Graham Gano was placed on IR. Of course. Week 3 groin injury. So what did they do? They elevate rookie Jude McAtamney, whatever, dude, from the practice squad. He wasn't great. He was 9 of 12, not on field goals, on extra points. So that's not even good on field goals. He was actually 100% from his field goals, but he didn't attempt any field goals in the even 40-plus yard range. So it was a 30-yarder and a 20-yarder that he made. And then again, 9 of 12 on extra points, which is appalling. He also missed 2 of those critical extra points in their Week 9 loss to the Broncos. So it was one of those, like, not only do you suck, but you're costing us freaking games here because you can't nail extra points, dude. So they went out and got Mr. Younghoe Koo. I think that's how you say his name. It's a known commodity. He's been around a long time. Former Falcons kicker. He debuted with the Giants just last week in Week 10. He was 2 for 2 on his field goals, 2 for 2 on his extra points. So Koo is now their guy. For the record, on his career, he's 96% on extra points, 86% on his field goals. The punter actually is a stable story, finally, known as the Scottish Hammer, Jamie Gillan. Little inconsistent, but frickin' banger of a leg. They gave him a 59 grade, 4.26 hang time. But of course, you look at his longest kick, it's 70 yards, so 69 to be exact. But yeah, his net yards are 38.8, which is not fantastic. But, they seem to be content. I think they have more to worry about. They're not really worried about this guy. And then they got 10-year veteran Casey Creeder as their long snapper, 2-time captain, been with the team since 2020. Steady Eddie. Returners, again, they're working on it. The punt return gig they've got kind of settled. It's Gunnar Olszewski, 16 returns, 149 yards. 21 was his longest, 9.3 is his average. He's the only guy that's taken any punt returns, 16 to be exact. They gave him a 67.8 grade. Kick returners, they've had 6 different, which I think we can sympathize with that. We've been through something similar on kick and punt returns. They tried to start off with Mr. Wan'Dale Robinson. That didn't go very well. The other guys that have been involved in this are Tyrone Tracy, Jalen Hyatt, Devin Singletary, Deonte Banks, and Mr. Gunnar Olszewski. I'm not sure I can tell you who's going to be returning kicks any more than I can tell you who the Packers are going to have back there. It seems like Gunnar is kind of their guy, but last week they had Deonte Banks out there. Gunnar returned 0 kickoffs, so I don't know. But it seems like Banks and Gunnar are sort of the top 2 guys, with Gunnar being the primary return guy, period. As far as the grading, Gunnar has a 75 overall, 74 kick return, Banks 70 kick return. So they're both pretty good at it. Banks actually has 33.6 yards per attempt, which is the highest on the team. Pretty solid. But all right, I think that's it. A very long episode. Is what it is. I am going to get up out of here. I will talk to y'all later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
For your soul. Welcome to the Green Bay Graveyard, where broken teams come to die. Welcome to the Green Bay Graveyard. Watch your season say goodbye. Numbers on IR, your weapons gone. Interim coach don't know what's wrong. Winston slinging balls to the wrong team. Half-league defense, living the dream. Your O-line crumbling like ancient stone. Every snap another broken bone. Dig another hole. Lose all control. Welcome to the Green Bay Graveyard, where broken teams come to die. Welcome to the Green Bay Graveyard. Watch your season say goodbye. Yeah. 0-3 with Wilson. Then the rookie battered broken. Now the turnover king. This is the end.